listening to She Leads with Carly, and our guest today is Sharon Love, the president and CEO of Community Brands. From choosing her career path to finding her passion to the different lessons she's learned along the way in leading her company, we cover a lot in this episode. One lesson that still sticks with me is when Sharon discusses the importance of leading with empathy and then being okay with being wrong. That definitely took her some time to realize and truly practice it, but you come out of it a much stronger leader. This and so much more with Sharon. Enjoy. Hello, Sharon. Thank you so much for coming on to She Leads today. How are you doing today?
I'm great. It is a sunny day and I am so ready for sunshine.
Oh, amazing. I agree with you. So, Sharon, I'm so excited to have you on my show. You are the president and CEO of Community Brands, which is the leading provider of cloud-based software to associations, nonprofits, K-12 schools, and faith-based groups. And you lead more than 2,000 employees serving over 120,000 clients in 30 countries, which is incredible. And I'm excited to hear more about Community Brands and your role for it. But even before Community Brands, you worked at Resolution EBS, senior roles at Dell, FedEx, Lenovo, and many more. But before we even get into all of that, what I'd love to do is really take me back to your time in university at George Mason University. You got your bachelor's and your master's there. So tell me, at this time, what questions were you asking yourself, or how were you thinking about your career? Did you know what you wanted to do? Did you think about this tech and being a senior role at these tech companies, or how were you really navigating that?
Yeah, I was not thinking about it anyway as to how I would think about it today. So, and it's not at all like how I tell my kids to think about it. I was at Mason. I started out as a computer science major because I loved computers. Like I'm old enough to remember the first day I saw a computer and I got to play lunar landing, and that was just like all I want to do with computers.
Amazing.
And if you've never played lunar landing, it's the thing where you try and land it just like they did on Mars. And so that was the best game of lunar landing that has ever happened, or Mars
Oh my
landing
God,
that's
I
ever
love it.
happened. So I'm there. It's like at the beginning of people trying to figure out what a computer science curriculum was.
Yeah.
And I got into it and I it was not I was not loving it. And the big thing that I realized as I was getting into, because it was very math based, I'm getting into more and more advanced math, and I realized I have these really big gaps in my math education. And I'm really good at integration, but I stink at differentiation, and I'm good at probability, but my stats are awful, and I have all these uneven things. And then I fell into this ragtag group of college debaters that if you've never hung out with a group of debaters, you're like the geekiest, nerdiest people in the world, who love nothing but to spend hours and hours talking about policy. Like, that's
Okay.
what we'll do. So I got in with them and got exposed to a whole different world of things that I had never seen before. Things about big global issues, big national issues, really complex policy issues like the environment. And that started changing how I thought about it. And I knew I wanted to do something technology related, and I wanted to do something business related. And that's about exactly how precise I was. And that's it. Um,
Wow.
so,
So,
yeah, that was the
and,
plan.
and so then you mentioned, looking back now, it's not how you would do it today, and you told your kids, a different way. What, looking back now, how would you think of it differently, or what would you do differently?
What I would do differently, and it's kind of how I've encouraged them, and they've made it their own, is thinking about more what are the things that you love to do? Like, what makes you happy when you get up and you know you get to go do that during your day? So
Yeah.
start to define those things, and then start looking at jobs that have those things inside of them, and then figure out what qualifications you need for the job. And like my daughter-in-law, great, like was really interested in religious education, and we were talking about it. She really wanted to go to grad school, and we were tussling with all of these ideas, and then settled on like, well, what's like that, but the thing that I could also get a job, and it was public policy. And
Wow.
graduated. She ended up graduating from Georgia Tech with a dual degree. Loves her field. So happy. So
Amazing.
yeah, but never thought of that when I was, in college. I just
Yeah.
wanted to graduate and get a job.
Okay, so before we actually get to the job aspect of it, I want to stay on that aspect of you loved computers and but you realized that you had this gap in math. And I want to know
Mhm.
what your thoughts are or advice for other females in college, because I think it's still a very similar trend in that, males and females, they can go into computer science, but the females are the ones that taper off because maybe they don't have the confidence or they think they have too many gaps and it's too big of a gap to actually continue pursuing it. And so, but what if they're like you and they have that passion? So, what would you say in that domain for females in this space?
What What tripped me up is I was really good at math, and so I ended up skipping math classes. And so, like, I
Okay.
would jump to a different level of math and I could still think my way through it. But I didn't know all of the underlying parts. And I think that's the thing. When you look at sciences, you can, and any of these hard skills, you can be really good, but you still have to go through all the stages. Maybe you go through the stages faster, but like,
Right.
I can still see points in which I didn't take algebra 2. Like, there are some things I just didn't learn that I really, really needed when I got to advanced math.
Yeah.
So it's being willing to believe that you are good, but you still have to work through the system because the system's there for
Yeah.
a reason.
Yeah, definitely. So approaching senior year or your first job, how was that process? Was resolution EBS, was that the first position for you out of college, or what was that trajectory like?
Yeah, my first job out of school was actually I was so lucky. I got to be a graduate assistant at something called the Center for Interactive Management. And what that was basically applying complexity theory to complex human problems. So
Cool.
that's where I took my interest in computer science evolved into an interest in design and general systems theory, which is the theory of how all systems work, human systems, biological
Yeah.
systems, computer systems. And so I got to spend a year. My job was very, very fancy. My job, they would have these groups in trying to solve like really hard problems. How do you fix federal government procurement? How do you
Mm.
fix big organizational strategic issues? And my job was to sit there and try and transcribe the meetings by typing as fast as I could. So I would sit in a room, hear people talk and type as fast as I could all day long, and then edit it all night long so we could give them the transcript the next morning. But it was
Wow.
great because I got to see all these really senior people, and that's like it's a really grunty job that I got to see all of these interesting ideas and different people and get exposed to things my first year out of school I wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Yeah. It's almost the idea where, there's a lot of value in those type of jobs where, it may not be the most fun or it's like you're doing the dirty work and, a job that not many people want, but at the same time, you're seeing all these incredible people, incredible ideas. So it's a very cool thing that people sometimes overlook or overlook the value essentially.
Very, very much so. And like I really, that's the thing that I'm really glad that so many internships now are becoming paid internships because that means more people can take those jobs and not just take a job for income, but take a job for that exposure and still have enough money
Right.
coming in to support themselves.
Right. So now walk me through a little more about your career trajectory. What was next? How did you kind of navigate? What questions were you
Yeah.
asking yourself to say, okay, it's time for me to move on?
Well, so my job was a 1 year posting, and so then I had to go get a real job,
Okay.
and I graduated in the middle of a recession, and like each big story arc of my career has been a recession has been involved. I have the worst
Oh
timing. Like
no.
everyone in my high school graduating class, all same thing. So basically I needed a job. I'm in Northern Virginia. There are all these Beltway bandits. Those are the people who do big contracting projects for the federal government. And so I got a job with one of them. And it was really, really neat because I was working with a super smart group of people. I was getting to do coding, so I was super excited about that. Although I'm not a very good programmer, I'm good at breaking things. I'm not good at writing them. But the super smart group of people, we were working on EPA Superfund programs. So back like when people didn't know where the big hazardous waste sites were, like we were
Okay.
writing the software to try and get that information gathered and doing like fancy distributed systems that we were doing with popsicle sticks and baling wire and bubble gum and stuff like
Wow.
that, but we made them work. So that was kind of that passion around the environment and then getting to dive into technology. And that evolved and then getting to take a leadership position and actually manage those programs. And it was a neat trajectory because I got to see both sides. Like I remember big epiphanies, like we would have executives at the EPA ask for something, and we would go crazy and we would spend hours and hours working on it, and then we'd give them this report and they'd be like, oh yeah, thank you. And like, well, didn't you want that? Wasn't that? And what we realized is they didn't know how hard it was for us to do it. And we weren't doing important things like going back and saying, yes, I can make that report. This is what it's going to take. Is it important enough for you for that to matter to you? And like we changed up our dialogue, and we had this client that was so angry with us all the time and then all of a sudden happy. And you get those epiphanies
Wow.
and like working within them. And like there's like from each job, I think I have this thing that I take away, this vignette that's still in my mind. I can see myself standing in the office talking to this executive.
So, okay, so going off of that story specifically, because I feel like that could be happening a lot in any type of workplace setting, and you decided to change the dialogue. Did that, though, change the dialogue in their appreciation for what you did? Because there's a difference in saying, like, we did XYZ, is it still worth it? And then saying, yes, it's still worth it. But did they still, like, now they had a better idea, okay, they're putting this much effort in, and I want to show appreciation? Or how did that change the response?
The dialogue we changed was to do that before we started like just reacting to everything that they asked for.
Oh, I
So it
see, I
was
see.
before we would do all the work and then maybe derail other things or not do other things that were on the project schedule or delay them. We would say yes and how, and this is what it's going to take. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, no, it's not that important to worry about it. Or it would be,
I
yeah, I
see.
really, really need that. I'm testifying in front of Congress in 2 weeks and I need this information. And then we're going to move heaven and earth for you. But
Yeah.
being willing to ask back, explore the question, frame the question is really important. And that's a pivotal enough experience that that's probably something I talk about almost every day. Like I'll ask for
Yeah.
data and say, but I want you to tell me how hard it is because I might not want it as bad as it is hard.
And I think that's a great testament to even you as a leader. It's the idea of just empathy, and like feeling what they're going through and having a better idea of like this is what it takes, rather than just blindly like giving it to the engineers and them coding it and then, you just saying, okay, great, thank you. Even though it took a lot of work. It's hard.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And probably the biggest thing I've learned in my career is it's stronger to practice empathy than it is not. Like that, boy, there have been so many points where that's been important to me.
Wow. So now talk me through a bit. You said you became a leader at that company, and you went on to become a senior leader at Dell, at FedEx, at these top companies that are very well-known
Mhm.
brands. How was that transition to being a leader from, typewriting or, transcribing meetings at a computer to now becoming a leader and leading a team? What was the biggest challenge in that transition?
Um, so it was bumpy because I had a lot to learn. So
Yeah.
I was in the DC area, had two kids, not the greatest marriage in the world, and great extended family sitting out in Ohio. So we uprooted ourselves, moved there, put our kids in the best situation as possible. And kind of in the course of there were I didn't, I wanted to go figure out like where I could develop my career and kind of fell into founding this company. Literally fell into it. It started out as a short-term consulting gig, and then it evolved into a great big consulting project, and then it evolved into software and all sorts of things, and became a really long journey from 98 to 2003 of figuring out how you build a company and how you lead people. And I will admit, I
Yeah.
was not very good at it at the beginning. Like, I wanted everybody to do it the way I was doing it. And I didn't know why everybody
Yeah.
couldn't just see it. Saw it. And so, like, really bad, totally bad. But I
S-
had really good people around me who cared and would
Okay.
tell me to stop doing stupid things.
So I feel like that's a very common, especially as a founder, as an entrepreneur, it's very hard to like let go of something. Like this is your baby, and now you are hiring people that, you're supposed to hire people that are better than you, and you're supposed to kind of let go of it. And so what advice do you have in that domain in saying like, you see it going this way, this is how it should be, but maybe they're more experienced than you or they're smarter than you in that specific domain, and they should control it. Was that How did you kind of deal with that over time? Was it just getting better over time or something specific?
It was kind of shifting my perspective in a bunch of ways. One of them was being willing to be wrong and
Okay.
getting really comfortable with being wrong and being wrong a
Yeah.
lot. Because like I would see it a particular way, and yeah, there was a lot of truth in that, but then I would miss the nuance of it, and those nuances are really important. So
Mm,
thinking less about leadership is me directing down and more about me creating dialogue and creating discussion and talking through and about things so that
wow.
we're exploring the dimensions of things rather than me just giving a list of orders. And that's where I'm so
Wow.
grateful to the people working with, because they're the ones who could kind of say, because we were all like these big nerdy systems thinkers, and nerd is an honor. um, and like they would say, Sharon, when you do this, this is what happens. I'm like, oh, now I get it. And I had a wonderful, wonderful board. So I was running this company during the dot-com crash. And
Okay.
so we got hit by that. And then we got hit by 9/11, and we were selling into transportation and manufacturing. So you know what
Wow.
that was. And I had these wonderful board members who were just very straight talk. This is what you got to do. And they gave me lessons that, like anyone who's worked for me knows about the bus speech. We're on a bus. This bus is going to Disneyland, and we're going to have a great time. If you want to go to Universal Studios, that's a fabulous place, but you got to go get on the Universal Studios bus. Don't get on this bus and ruin the trip. Don't hang on the bus and slow everyone down. Don't sit on the bus and gripe about not getting to go to Universal Studios. Um, that
Yeah.
that became the Disney speech, but like that's something that came from that time as we talk through, like, guys, this is what we're going to be going through for the next 6 months. It's okay to leave if this isn't right for you. And like telling people you can
Wow.
leave right now, no harm, no foul. We still care about you and will actually help you find your next step if this doesn't fit your world. So
Wow. I love it.
it was like I don't know, it felt like 20 years of experiences in that 6, 7 year period. It was really lovely, really hard.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm sure we'll get to it a little bit, obviously, how COVID has impacted you at Community Brands and the company as a whole. But I'm sure you've learned so many lessons, obviously, dealing in a time of crisis, which is incredible. And another thing is one thing that I love is just being comfortable being wrong. I think that is so valuable and definitely takes time and years to kind of get more comfortable with that. But I love that. So now take me through, going to Dell, going to
Mhm.
FedEx, being a senior leader at these different companies. How was that experience?
So I wrap up my startup. It was not a great success. We were not like one of the woohoo, everything worked right. Learned a
Yeah.
lot. Great people, and decided that some of the biggest gaps that I had was I didn't understand how really big companies work. So I took myself from a
Mm,
company of 50 people. I decided I'm going to Dell. We got 50,000 people there. I'm going to go learn something. And the other cool thing about going to Dell is I'd always been in enterprise software where you have big, multi tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, $1 million contracts. Now I'm going to go work for a company that literally makes money a penny at a time, because if you buy a
yeah.
laptop, there is so little margin built into that laptop. Threw myself into the middle of that, became part of a branding team and got this whole different view and started learning about this is what it means to brief Wall Street. This is how we drive data. This is how we drive an organization where you will never get to talk to all 50,000 people. You have to figure out how to create processes and systems and metrics and incentives that get 50,000 people doing the things that need to be done on a day-to-day basis. And then I
Yeah.
got to go actually run one of their service lines of business where we got to do all sorts of really fun things. Like it was a PC installation service, like super simple, right? It's actually really
Yeah.
hard because you've got boxes there, you've got people who know how to configure things. You got to figure out what to do with the boxes at the other end. And another just great team who had all these really good ideas that they just wanted to put into action. And that's the point where I learned everything for me is analogies. Stone soup. You know the fable of stone soup? Poor
I
man
don't.
goes to the village and everybody's starving, and he says, can anybody spare some food? And no one has food. So he says, okay, I'm going to make my stone soup. It's the best soup you ever have. He starts to cook. And someone walks by and says, what's that? It's stone soup. But you know, it would be perfect if I just had a carrot in the soup. And then another one, and a potato, and maybe a small slice of ham. And pretty soon you've got this great big pot of the most wonderful stew, and the starving village is eating. That's remarkably true in a corporate environment, also in life, because if you look at these big matrixed companies, you want to start up a new program. Nobody has budget, nobody has resources, nobody has time to do anything, so you got to go make stone soup. And you go say, hey, you over there in accounting, do you think, I could do this really cool program if you could just process an invoice like this? And hey, you over there in sales, if you would just do this for me, I think we could sell a whole lot more. And you delivery
Yeah.
team, or like providers, we actually started this really open dialogue with our providers, the people who were supplying the people who installed the PCs, and just asked them, like, what do you need to do a better job? Because it was kind of rocky. And they told
Yeah.
us, I'm like, oh, we can do that. We can fix this. So got to go through like a bunch of kind of corporate innovation and figuring out how you get a whole bunch of people in different teams to come and work together, which is very similar to what I got to do at FedEx and Lenovo as you go through those cycles of like figuring out how you get people on the same page, on board, and like, like kids running around in a swimming pool and eventually you make a whirlpool, how you get all the kids to
Yeah.
run around in the pool.
I love that. I love that fable. That's a great one. And especially relevant, even everyday life, but also as an entrepreneur, you're trying to, pick your pieces to make a working team and a working company. So I love that. So looking back at your career now, do you think that maybe you would have switched the order or like go to a bigger company and see how it works
And
and then, try and start your own thing and kind of have a better foundation?
probably, I mean, when I started out, like I thought I knew everything. I mean, heck, I was 32 and I knew all the things. Of course, I've been like in the working world for several years already. Yes, definitely. I would have
Yeah.
and that's kind of also that same thing I was talking about school. I would have thought more diligently about the range of experience that I would need. And that's kind of what I came
Yeah.
out of that with is if I'm going to go do this. And so I'll tell you two versions of my career story. I do,
Yeah.
these earlier stage companies. I found my company. I walk out of that and say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get all this great corporate experience, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to come back to a smaller company, and I'm really going to be ready to lead that company. And that sounds like really good and like the perfect story arc. The reality was that was
Yeah.
kind of my idea, but all those parts in the middle were just so messy and frustrating and hard, and like I got the best job in the world at FedEx. We're going to go build this whole innovation team and it's going to be amazing. And we're going to change the world. And then another recession hits. And this is massive. And like it hits directly into FedEx's core business. And they did a great job managing it, by the way, because they prioritized and they kept the program alive, but they had to de-scope it so much for the areas I was passionate
Wow.
about. And walk away and say, this stinks and this is awful. And then you kind of find out that, well, no, actually, that just opened up another opportunity where I got to go do another expansion on my skill set at Lenovo and another group of experiences. I got to travel the world and really open up my international experience because we happen to have another recession. So it was actually
So
that middle part was so messy, it didn't feel like a grand plan.
so I think you're the perfect person almost with the idea that planning is always, you can never, there's a saying, man plans, God laughs, essentially. And you can always, you could plan out this perfect career, but who knows, COVID or recession hits or something happens that, it's another door opens. You can look at it or you can think of it as something else. So I think that's very, very interesting. And looking at your career, so before we get to community brands and what you're doing now, just looking at your career, kind of having those ups and downs and, recession, COVID, whatever. what advice would you give people who are kind of in that slump and like are going through something where they think they're at the very bottom? How do they get out of that, given that, these external disasters are happening?
But there's a lot to be said for just keep showing up and just keep having
Yeah.
at. And, so much of that, particularly like for people who are job hunting right now, so much of that is being willing to just go back after the next thing, to look for the next opportunity, talk to the next person, and, kind of keep that centeredness to yourself that you're going to be okay. This is hard
Yeah.
in this moment, but this is not your life. And like, especially for people over the last year, this has been the hardest year most people will ever experience. But this isn't the life. This will go on to the next phase. And our only job is we get through today. And then what?
Yeah.
We're going to get tomorrow. And that's all we have to do. You keep doing that,
Yeah.
and then it starts to come back to where you want it to be.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's easy to kind of think like, oh no, I'm screwed for this next, year. But it's like taking it step
Yeah.
by step, like taking it into little mini steps that you can get through. That's probably a very key tip. I love that. So tell me now your role at Community Brands. You're the president and CEO, which is incredible. So tell me what you guys do. What is Community Brands?
We get to do really neat stuff. So we serve organizations that serve people in their communities, whether it's an association, like an association for engineers, or an association. We serve associations that serve like emergency room nurses, which is so wonderful
Mm,
to talk to them because they tell us the amazing things their people are doing. We serve
wow.
faith organizations. So the ones that are reaching out to especially older people who are stuck in their homes and they so badly need a connection. The way that we serve these organizations, and we serve nonprofits, we serve K through 12 schools, like the schools that are trying to figure out how am I going to teach kids with all this going on, the nonprofits who are like right on the front lines of this. The way we serve them is we help them manage their finances. So we do the specialized accounting and financial systems that you need to serve those types of organizations. We help them manage their membership. So who am I serving with my organization? Who are the congregants I need to reach out to? Who are the donors I need to reach out to? And then who are the people I'm trying to serve with that, with the money that I raise? And then we provide other tools to engage how they work with the people that they serve. Sometimes it's as simple as enabling them to do online tithing or online giving. A whole bunch of nonprofits, they literally run their organizations by their annual gala. That's their biggest fundraising event. And all these galas happen in the spring just before shutdown. So there's thousands and thousands of organizations who lost their major fundraising opportunity. Now, how do we get
Wow.
them out of the gala online in an event that still inspires people to donate during a time when we really need those donations? So we get to do that. We create these online experiences. We make it easy for people to donate. We make it easy for our associations to engage their members by doing things like if you're a specialty engineer and you're looking for a job in your field, it's really hard to find those specialty jobs on some of those big websites. We can
Yeah.
create and like funnel specific jobs for that engineer into the association website, which helps the association because now I'm really excited about being a member. And then it helps the member because now maybe I'm the first person in my family who's a mechanical engineer specializing in a certain set of technology. Now, instead of having to rely on my personal network, I have a place I can go find the people who are looking for me.
Wow. That sounds amazing. You guys, it really sounds amazing.
It's pretty neat. It's a huge array. Like we have a whole bunch of different services that we provide, and that makes it really interesting because every day is something new. Every day.
Amazing. So before we go on to the fun questions, so tell me, you didn't end up going to a small startup and, leading it from the ground up, and now you're at this huge organization, over 2,000 employees. How is that? Is that, something that your experience from these tech companies, from FedEx, has translated like effortlessly into Community Brands? Is there what's a challenge that you're experiencing that you're still hoping to learn?
Mm-hmm. It is the it feels like exactly the place that I'm supposed to be. And, I joined 3 weeks before we shut down for COVID. And I'm kind of like,
Wow.
oh, really? Really? This is how this is going to go? But what I
I'm not
found,
surprised. I'm not surprised.
oh yeah, no, it goes perfectly in line with other things. But then realized
Yeah.
I'm just about the luckiest person in the world because I found this team that is so resilient, so gritty. Like, two quick stories. We were shutting down our offices the Friday night and Saturday, and we shut them down really fast, like the rest of the company. And then Monday morning at 8 o'clock, we're supposed to start ops reviews. And I'm just watching my email, waiting for people to say we need to reschedule. Nobody emails me. Monday morning at 8 o'clock, they're all showing up, and the ops reviews are actually pretty important because that's how we make sure we're on track. And they're just there, like nothing's happened, like we didn't just shut down 40 some offices. It was amazing. Then last week, with Texas going on, guess what? Ops reviews again, and we have a whole bunch of people in Texas. And again, I'm kind of waiting for, do we need to reschedule? Like, I've got these people sitting in their cars, and we told, no, you don't have to do this. Like, go take care of your families. They're like, yeah, I got this.
Wow.
And they're in their cars, on their phones, delivering their updates because they know their mission is important. So that's where I'm like, I don't know how this happened to me, but I'm the luckiest person in the world to get to work with this crew. So you
Wow,
actually
that's amazing. So honestly,
yeah, yeah.
sorry.
Sorry.
I was saying, no, it's okay. I was saying that honestly, like after this chat, like you say you're the luckiest person, but really, like having you as a leader, I can tell it's very like I'm sure they're so lucky to have you as their leader. So really, that's amazing. And now Sharon, what we're gonna do now is go to our fun questions. So the first one is just tell me a hobby that you have that's just unrelated to any of your work. So, no computers or whatever you do in your work, it's more just outside of work.
I run. I am one of those obnoxious people who, if I'm not running, I'm talking about running, or I'm wanting to talk about running. So yeah, I run because it's easy.
Amazing.
I can do
Okay. I love it.
anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
No,
a great one. And
it's
then
a break in the
my
world. Mhm.
my final question is what is a weird or fun talent that you have that no one really knows about? So almost a hidden talent. And so I'm
I,
going to go
I had.
first. And so what I have
Mhm.
here is a sorry, it's lagging. But what I have here is a blueberry. And what I do is I throw it in my mouth. Okay? So let's see how this goes. All right. There we go. Got it.
Impressive. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So mine, I had to think about this. I can tell whether a Diet Coke has come from a can, a bottle, a plastic bottle, or a fountain. And if it's from a fountain, I can
No
tell you if
way.
it's McDonald's Diet Coke or not. Um, and I'm not as good as I used to be, but I used to be able to tell what country the Diet Coke was from.
Oh my goodness, that is crazy. That is I think that's one of the coolest, most unique talents that I've heard so far, which is very impressive. So I love that. That's crazy.
I used to drink way too much Diet Coke.
Oh my God, that is so funny. Well, Sharon, I have to say thank you so much for coming on my show. I really loved our conversation. I've learned so much, and I'm just so excited for others to hear more about your story and the lessons you learned. So thank you.